And it looks like we're live. So let's get check our audio real quick. And it's working. Wonderful. I'm going to move the microphone so it might make a little strange squeaky noise. Sorry if it does. It does that. It's on one of these arms, metal arms, and so it can get squeaky. Okay, we are live. So I've got a reference pulled up here. Let me drag that over so you guys can see. So we've got some of these you'll recognize from earlier live streams. I wanted to do some of these interesting clothing forms here and the hats and so forth. And we'll see how we tackle this one. I'm kind of thinking that I will do these in different poses and angles and so forth, so I'm not just copying this. So we'll take that route tonight, I think. Okay, so we got our fill layer. I'm going to delete that mask there. Line up my Intuos tablet here. I have my Intuos is on a extended arm, so I can kind of move it up and down for either standing or sitting orientation, and like different work postures. And I find that that's a good way to break things up, so that you're not doing the same, in the same posture all the time. You can definitely feel, or at least I can feel, my energy levels kind of dipping and so forth. And so it's a good thing to be able to switch that up. Okay, so we can go. I'm going to block some of these in here. Probably the smarter thing to do would be to start with the torso. And so you got the shoulders and hips. And then if your legs are in this position here, then we'll just drop the skirt will just kind of hang off there. And then we'll bring in the rest of the details here. So the limbs, of course, elbows, are going to hit the base of the rib cage, and bring those in. And in all of these, they've got their hands together in these kind of pocket type things. So you actually don't see their hands at all, which is kind of interesting. And I'll probably make these smaller, shrink them down, because this file is quite huge, and it's intended to be that way, so that I have a lot of options of what I can do with this image in terms of print or anything like that. Though I have to say that that's never really the intent. When I dive into these, I want to keep that option open now, just in case. All right, so let me go ahead and copy that, and we'll shrink this all down. Here we go. That'll be sufficient, and we'll do a few more. Let me go full screen here. We'll do a few more. So then our actual reference image, I'm just going to real quick kind of block that out. So we get this kind of perspective here. And so the back character is down here. Then you've got one here and here. You might hear my son in the background there getting ready for bed. We just got off a pretty long trip here, a grocery run, stocking up. When you live a little bit out of the way, we live, we're not near any major cities or anything, so you gotta travel a little bit to get do your groceries and all that stuff. Not that anybody cares, but it's funny. It's a different lifestyle. You know, when I lived in a city, you know, you had all these options of where to get things. And it was, you know, a mile this way, a mile that way, whatever. And then out here, it's like at least a 20-minute drive to get to anything of consequence. Yeah. So anyway, so in our reference image, this is relatively what we've got. These characters are actually kind of closer together, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab my lasso tool, clean some of these up a little bit. There we go. And this line up top, it's just a reference to position them. And something to think about if you're new to composing scenes. You want things to relate to each other. Okay. And the shoulder height, if I'm looking at this, the common area would be probably this thing right here. Of course, this person in the background is quite a bit lower, so maybe we'll bring that one up like that. And she's got like these little tassel type things that hang off of her dress there. Shoulders come down on this character. And then there's like a void area right there. We'll paint that back in. So this arm, you know, I put that negative space in the elbow. It's actually not there in the reference. It's on the opposite side here. And then this character here, she's like looking down in our reference. And she's actually a little bit forward, a little bit larger than this other one. And I'm going to adjust her pose as well. All right, some of this, you know, you want to leave a little bit messy on the edge. Depends on the style that you're going for, but I find that you don't get yourself locked in too early on your silhouette or rendering. If you just give yourself a little bit of wiggle room there. And this kind of flares out. And actually our reference cuts off here, so we don't actually see the feet on this character. We'll give it a little variation to the folds there. Okay, could block in a few more poses based on these characters now that we're we're starting to figure them out, figure out, you know, how their silhouettes work, you know, what the motif of the you know, the garb is. And so now we'll see if we can do some imagined poses here. They're really interesting. Just how they, you know, they flare out the sleeves, so it's almost like a bell-bottom sleeve. I'm sure there's a name for it, but I don't know these things. But yeah, it comes out to you know, this big kind of fluffy thing around the wrists, and then the dresses as well seem to have, you know, something. You know, like they would have those hoop skirts or whatever that would increase the, you know, the fluffiness, poofiness of them. So they hold this shape. It looks like there's something like that going on here as well. Okay, now I'm going to do the reverse color. I think we'll go, I guess we can go with a soft, cool gray, and we'll do this as a new layer, just to be more responsible. And we'll start blocking in some more. Uh-oh, somebody's unhappy. Here, let me go investigate that real quick. All right, I'm back. The bedtime meltdown. All right, let's see here. So with this, I'm just going to bring in some of the patterning and try to show. Really, I'm just trying to show form with this. This isn't anything more complicated than that. It's partially going to grab some of the light, but we're going to use this to kind of follow these different form cues here. Okay, let's see. So we're just controlling the thickness of these lines, having it kind of trail off into nothing on the edges there. Does it comes into the elbow, you know, the fold of the elbow there. And then we can show a change in form here with that as the cue. It looks like it has some like text on it, and so again we would have these characters that we're drawing on here, like they're kind of flat up over the shoulder, and then they kind of open up, get wider, and that implies, of course, that it turns around that form. Sad little girl over there. Like I was saying earlier, we went on a little shopping trip this evening, and so those poor kids have been in the car ready for a break, and yeah, it's bedtime now, so can be kind of hard on them. Do these, so it's got these circles on it, you know, and as they turn the form, you know, with all these folds, this could be, I mean, this could be a really tricky one to address, but it could also be kind of fun to, you know, have these kind of coming in and out of this this region as they would show up on the pattern. I think I might have to show, like here, I might have to show like more of a flat on, straight on kind of view, so that you can see what the pattern is. Whereas all on this side, it's been pretty obscured. Okay, I should probably speed up a little bit here because I don't want to get too lost in getting, you know, these little pattern things going on. But they are useful in showing form. And I've said that, and I keep harping on that, but there's all different ways to accomplish these things. You know, whether that be line or shading, pattern, all different ways to approach it. See this one woman in the reference here, it's like she's got her hands like in pockets, it looks like, you know. So we'll play on that design. Let's see. Just get this interesting pattern around the base of her skirt here. this comes around. The other one would come like over here. Something like that. I have to adjust this here. This that area up. Let's see. I think what I can do here is bring in these larger hash marks like this, and then we'll erase away at those to get the pattern that we want. Rather than trying to cut it all perfectly. Hit that again. I don't know if this is going to save us any time or make it worse. I guess it depends on whether or not I can hit those same kind of angles here. Okay. Yeah, not loving that, but we'll live with it. Don't want to get caught up on getting that just so when there's plenty else to move forward on here. All right, she's got this headdress type thing. The cool thing with all these, in the reference is that they're all very different. Uh-oh. That's the little guy. Poor kiddos. I'm pretty sure that is, well, I'm positive that it's exhaustion. If my wife needs help with him, she's not above interrupting the stream for help. Gotta keep your priorities in line. But they're just sleepy kids. I'm just going to block in the shadows really quickly for the faces. Getting a little heavy on that one. This character here. Down under the nose. Alright, now we will block in some of these other ones up top here. And you may see that I'm using the generally the largest brush possible for the job. And that is, if you can get into that habit, that's going to save you a lot of work, and it's going to make your designs a little more simplified, and I say that in a good way. Like if your work is just tons and tons of lines, scratchy lines, you know, there's a style for that, and you can develop that style. But I find that if you can see the essential characteristic of something and get that in just a few strokes, then you're focusing on the important parts. You know, what makes that thing appear to be what it is, rather than you know, eventually getting there over 1,000 smaller, less confident strokes, if that makes sense. So, something to think about. I'll come back to these faces a bit. I think this will need a little more dialing in. But let's go for the whole image first. Let's see. a smoother arc on that one. And of course, if anyone's interested, go ahead and pop in the chat, get any comments or questions. This one, character in the reference here, like just this pose, just I don't know, something really cool about it. The way her, she's got her hands in her pockets, but the dress really kind of breaks up the form with these kind of flared out wrists, the ends of the cloth, the sleeves rather. It's really cool. Interesting to see. I'm just going to imply some of the patterning on that headpiece there. And then this has a really intricate, well, nice defined kind of trim to it, which is nice. There's a nice look. And I was talking about using the largest brush when you're working on something, and there's these different reeds that you want to get. You want to get the big reed that is, you look at the image and you understand it in one look, you know, all the big stuff works. And then you want to look at it, you want to have these kind of smaller areas to look at. So I've seen this conceptualized as like a 1, 2, 3 read. So 1 is your biggest level, 2 is your mid, so like 1 would be this whole skirt, right? And then 2 is like these big, bright marks on it. And then your 3 is all these little tiny marks that are together, you know, implied detail. Implied or otherwise. I mean, you could actually take the time to get those exact, you know. We're not doing that right now, but or ever, maybe, who knows. But that's your 1, 2, 3 read on these things, so you can have different levels of interest with your, or different levels of detail and graphic shapes, you know, that your eye can latch onto. I'm gonna have to come back in on this one. There's just a lot going on here. It's pretty rough. We'll come back to that. Alright, then we got a couple other ones that we invented over here, so we gotta get them. Well, I guess actually I have a little bit to finish here that I neglected. So we'll get into that. Okay. Alright, so we'll jump in over to these ones over here, and we'll see how do we extrapolate some of these things and get a little more inventive. So I like how they all of the sleeves have kind of these bands that go across, and that is helpful to follow that form pretty easily. So I'm gonna go with that. This collar thing looks like a sash, like belt that comes around, but then also they all have these like tassels that come down over the shoulders, over the chest, and so I'm gonna make sure that we get that in there as well. And I was talking about this with a friend of mine the other day. We were talking about, you know, perspective on these kind of pieces. When they're so small, or rather, you know, the scale of it, you're not putting them in a scene really. You're just referencing, you know, the proportions, and you can at times get your lens messed up, you know, where you're looking at a something with really extreme proportion changes, and sometimes it's even those simple things of your forms not diminishing as they go back in space, you know. So keep an eye out for those things. Not that it's, you know, we're not doing a tight perspective drawing here. In fact, we're implying everything, you know, fudging all of the perspective. We're doing it sloppy and implied. But even so, you have all these little rules that are going to help you sell, make that sell on the character actually occupying physical space. See, I like that idea of these converging lines here. I think that's got to be a little more extreme there. Again with checking out these, interesting cultural styles and trying to figure them out and needing to do more study, it's definitely one of those areas. As I'm looking at these, they do resemble the like the archer helmets of the Mongol Empire, so I wonder how much the dress, how much the style comes from aesthetic preferences and choices, and how much it references each other, like if it, I don't know how to describe that, like in any kind of concept art or even fashion, there are often these references to other parts of culture. And so I can't imagine that that's a new invention, you know what I mean? Like I'm sure we've been doing that for a very long time. So I'm curious how these motifs developed over time. All right, a few more to go, and then maybe we'll come back, clean up, add some color, that sort of thing. I'm gonna knock out this line while I see it. It's bothering me. That was our reference line for where their common common pass through on the horizon. So that's another one of those little tricks. If you're putting something in perspective, a real quick and dirty way to do that is if you have all these characters that are standing on the same plane, the horizon will pass through their body at the same reference point. So if the horizon passes through the shoulders of a character and they're standing upright, and then you've got another character who's standing upright on the same plane, they should be positioned such that their shoulders are also intersected by the horizon line. Of course, once you get into uneven ground and different poses and all that sort of thing, then you've got a little bit more complexity there, but that is one of those quick and dirty tricks to get things to be ballparked into perspective. And these do seem to have a bit of a symmetry to them. They're not. I guess. Well, yeah, they're all pretty symmetrical. You know, I don't see any of these references. You know, breaking. You know, having like the skirt meet up on the side rather than directly on the front, or you know, it seems pretty symmetrical to the human form there. Linear. Let's see. Do we have anything? Any other types of decoration on these hats? I mean, the head dress is, I wouldn't say universal, but it seems to follow a pretty clear format. You know, with like this a diamond with like a circle in it, and then a tall area of red with these like little flaps that come back down. Sounds like the kids finally got down to sleep. Okay, I hear my wife out there getting started on her work. Such is the nature of the work from home kind of life. Do as much of your work as you can when the kids are asleep. The other philosophy is to sleep when the kids sleep. And that one works. But I don't know. I have this thing where if I fall asleep during the day, it's never good. I don't wake up refreshed or anything. I just wake up like I just missed everything. You know, it's not good for me. Let's see. We want these little like mandala type things going on here. They're pretty cool. Pretty cool designs. I guess we should give this person a face. The least that we can do. Let's redo that one. This is making me sad on the inside. All right, now I guess we can address some of these things. Like this face, for example, is way off. Turning that shadow into a mustache. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think I'm going to have to get closer and use less aggressive brushes for this. But I want to get it blocked in before I get too close. If you can get it in the ballpark on the block end, then less work to do when you get into the details. Okay, let me zoom out, have a look at this afresh. I'm going to move the whole thing so that it actually a little easier to work with. We might extend this down. This is just a smudge brush on that layer there. Okay, so let's see what we're working with here. I'm going to bring that back down, or maybe lower the darkness of our background stuff here. Basically, I want to get these closer so that there's not such an extreme contrast, and then we're going to start smoothing it out. So I'm just going to actually just lighten up my dark material there, and I had painted some dark on the layer above it, but that's fine. In fact, we'll colorize this so that we're working with something rather than nothing. It's usually a good place to be. Okay. And I just zoom out there just to get a kind of overarching read on what's going on. Now, so actually what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to pin these. So this I'm going to go ahead and name so that we can keep track of it. And this was also a lighter value. So I'll just merge those together. Merge layers, lighter value. Dark drawing down here. And then we're going to do some recolor layers. And so we're just going to pin those to the original drawing and start making some adjustments. So now we're going to go to a softer brush. I'll use this one. It still has texture in it, but it has a nice soft fall off. And if I just show you here, that's kind of how that brush works there. So you can work soft with it. You can work a little harder, more gritty with that one. But we're just going to go with like a middle gray, kind of warm. And this is pinned to our lighter value. Should we do this with the light or the dark? Let's do it with the light. And we're just going to start blending in on top of that. So, we did all that work to get those lighter values blocked in. And now that we've got it basically as a mask, we can come in with this kind of blending value here to get it get it a little more refined. Now, if you've watched before, you'll know that sometimes when we're doing this, we'll just pin this, we'll lock the transparent pixels on that. And what that does is it basically, it's not going to draw any new pixels. So wherever your existing pixels at the opacity that they are currently existing, you just replace them with a new color. When you're painting on it, it constrains the painting to what you had previously done. And so in this case, I mean, it's really basically the same thing, but the difference being that we're doing it on a separate layer, so we're really not being destructive to the original drawing there. And I will, you might have to remind me, but when we get to that stage, I'll go ahead and hide this layer so that you can see the difference that it made. And I'm actually going to invert and get an even brighter color here. And I want to dull this down a little bit. So when I need to, I'm going to switch. I'm going to switch between the light and dark there to pump this up to the zone that I want, or bring it down to the shadow that I want. I don't like that shift in value. I'm going to go back to my cool colors here. I'll come back and do that again. Here we go. All right, doing the same thing here. Bring that in, not quite on the center line and not quite on the top. You're just kind of doing like a third from the top there, and that's just, it's kind of subjective when you don't actually have a light reference. What I'm talking about is where I'm putting the brightest value here. It's not quite on the edge because I want to show that form turning. If the light was coming above and slightly behind, then it would catch on that right on the edge, or right on the top plane. But I find that this is a pretty descriptive way of handling that. Which is primarily what we're going for, right? We want to communicate this form, and communicate it preferably in the most flattering way. So it does not always have to be perfectly correct to reality, or at least if you are going to approach a realistic rendering of it, then control your light, control where it's located and how shadows fall on your object, again, so that it is the most flattering presentation. Unless, of course, you want to present something very unflattering. It's also a way you could approach it. All right, so I think you'll see that the changes here right now are quite subtle. Perhaps through the live stream, maybe even imperceivable at this point. But what we're doing is we're just bringing some of this really bright value down, up and down, in order to add more definition to the form. You know, soft transitions, make it more interesting. You know, for example, here on these patterns, I've got to make this decision of whether, you know, it's darker as it turns the form and then brighter as it faces us, or vice versa. But if they're done uniformly, then it's going to look flat. So what I've done here is I've made it look a little darker as it turns the form on this edge, and a little brighter as it's facing towards us. But I'm going to go ahead and switch that, and we'll see if that, if that reads any better. Reads any more clearly. That would be the goal. More clearly. More better. Quite possibly more better that way. All right. Let's keep on rolling. Cast a little bit of a shadow so that those patterns are actually kind of separated as different layers of fabric. All right, getting too bogged down with this, so I'm going to speed it up a bit here. So up in here, get this pattern with this kind of soft shadow here, soft shadow on the edge, soft shadow on this edge. Harden that up as it turns. So really the portions of the fabric that are facing us are going to have that brighter light on this one. There's also a nice benefit to this with the draw through, where, you know, we've already kind of laid out where things need to be, and so if I want to show, say, this arm here, you've got all these little patterns on it, but you can draw through the whole thing and do it all in one go. So an example of that, if I darken this whole thing up just like this, it's a little dark there, and then I want the light catch it, I can start here, draw through the whole thing, right? And because that's pinned to that layer, then it's just going to affect only those lighter lines that we drew earlier. Moving along here. bringing in some brighter light on the face up here. Catch some of that light on the sleeve, on this little sash thing here. Bring some of it back. Just a balancing act here. I think what you can see what I'm doing here is you bring this cast shadow in, strengthens up the form, you know, that this object up here, you know, the chin and this little headdress thing, is casting a hard shadow there, like that. And if we get that shape dialed in, then it communicates the form nicely. Okay. And here I'm making a decision on how to, or to what degree I want to separate or merge, you know, these two characters right here. And by merge, I mean basically you lose the edge between them so that it's not, you know, it's not important to the artist or to the viewer that they are separate. You actually are making decisions about some things being combined in a composition. It helps to lead the eye. It helps to show what's important and what's not. And also, it can be quite interesting, quite interesting effect to have shapes kind of blend into each other and disappear, right? And generally, I would approach that as a tool to lead the eye around, right? Like what is your focal point, and then everything else can kind of softly blend into each other. They don't have to have these really sharp delineations between each other. But in some cases, you may want them to be combined. So we're going to play with that. I think we're going to push all of that back, just make it less significant here. Maybe just a little bit of light hitting it, coming down here. And we gotta address this whole face before we go any further. This is gonna drive me crazy. Okay. There we go. Sorry, going quiet. Going into focus mode. At least that's my excuse. Going into what exactly am I doing right now mode? Do you ever work in that mode? So I think part of what's throwing me with this character is that she has like pretty heavy eyeshadow, looks like, or some kind of makeup around the eye, and it just throws the form. You know, you don't get the normal, a natural read on the eye, the shape and everything. And she's looking down, it appears. And this, I don't want to go too heavy on here because this should all kind of fade down to this light or darker value here. So let me come back in, feather that back down. And I don't want to lose, I guess I've got them in the color history there. So I'll go ahead and grab the black again and come back in to reestablish these eyes here. Eyebrow rather is far too high, so that's not helping. And the whole hat is a little lower too, so we can knock a bunch of that out. Let's come back to this, clean this up here. And I'm sure when I zoom out, I'm going to see something that I have been missing here. I'm close, being too close to it. We shall see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And then this actually kind of darkens up on the brow. The main thing that I want to be careful with, especially with this being black and white, is that I don't have the perception of, you know, these just being really dark eyes, like I didn't come in and fill in the whites of the eyes or whatever, but that she actually appears to be looking down, and those are the eyelashes. So, and then this edge kind of gets lost here. Let me check the shape of that upper lip. Okay. I think I need to soften this up just a little bit there, and then we'll come back out to the top level and see what damage we've done. Yeah, definitely a little too dark. The whole concern about making the eyes not appear as eyelashes. Okay. So we'll continue on with our other characters here. Doing that draw through method. We've got everything blocked in, so all we've got to really do here is just shift some of the values a little bit. Shifty, shifty. Switch over to the bright and, you know, bring in some of the top planes. I'm actually going to bring this back down again with the skin tone. Layer these a bit there. Okay, jump over to the next one. Rinse and repeat. Hey, just checking out the chat here. Welcome, Cameron. Thanks for popping in. So I'm not sure if I'll get to color on these tonight. I wanted to block in several of these that were posed differently than the reference, you know, to learn something from the reference and then move from there, and invent something, you know. And we'll see if that lends itself to nice designs worth, you know, getting into color. Just really blending in some of these values here. That's what we're doing. And then I think we can get to, I'm not sure if we'll do a paint over of all of this. You know, we've controlled these well enough where we have our lights and darks mainly on different layers. Once we get to the point where we're happy with that, we can break it with just painting over it. Not that we're itching to you know, make the layer stack messy or anything like that, but there is a point where it's really not important, or not important to go back to the previous stage, and it's also if there's certain changes you want to make that are necessary, all the necessary changes are not too difficult to, you know, jump back to. And so this would be one of those areas where, you know, I'm kind of just messing with what we've got, and it would be just fine to paint over it. It's not so sacred that we can't rid ourselves of it, right? All right, let's see what we've got here. So we'll go full screen, design to design. Definitely went too far with that face. Probably should check the angles on it, make sure, you know, that it's actually working, you know, as intended in its pose, you know, in relation to the rest of the character, before I really go rendering it, right? Turning this into a dude. The features are too strong. Almost looks like a beard down there, right? So maybe we soften everything up. And then get that soft transition from the top of the head down, so it darkens up as it comes down to the chin there. Okay. Yeah, this one for sure went too far on that. It's kind of funny, actually. I think it just looks out of place, you know. Let's see if we can do a quick manipulation on it, or if that's just gonna have to be, yeah, I think we'll have to do that as a separate layer. Sometimes you get going and you think to yourself, what am I doing? Excuse me. So I'm going to grab my darkest value here. I'm going to go to the recolor on that layer, and we'll see if we can bring some of that in, you know, with that whole draw through our brightest areas on our you know, the areas that have highlights on them on the local light value. We're going to draw through this lighter color on the dark value, so that way the light you know, passes through the whole you know, that whole plane, regardless of what the local value is. That makes it a little more convincing. So, if that's not making any sense, what I need to show you here is, like, you can see how this has a highlight catching on it, but the dark doesn't change at all. And actually, your dark values are not going to change as much because of the halfway to black rule, and that is if you have a I'm gonna mess this rule up because I actually don't use it that much, but if you have a local value and you cast a shadow on it, you pick the shadow color that is halfway between that local value and black. And the reason is that there's less light bouncing off of a darker local value than on a brighter local value. So it catches less light and reflects less light towards the eye of the viewer, and so it looks unnatural if you have a dark value that is reflecting more light than a light value, assuming that they're the same material type. Now, there's, of course, they could be, well, you know, one's satin and one's gloss, you know, so you have those kind of differences, but generally speaking, you want to do that. Less of an effect on your brighter or in your darker values, rather. And of course, we can just lower the opacity on this layer if we want to do that. So we've pinned this. So if you see what I mean here, we're just kind of lightening up to meet the highlight on these other layers, and we can bring it back to kind of get closer to that halfway to black rule. You know, so it's just gives us just a little bit of a bump there, but not too much. Okay, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to take this face and adjust it because it's bothering me. You can't just say that to anybody. I'm going to adjust your face. It's bothering me. In fact, it's probably a good rule of thumb not to say that to anybody or on a live stream. Let me just we'll zoom out here and we'll see how we're doing with this. See if that integrates it any better. Okay. So, to color or not to color? It's already 10:30. I suppose we can get into it. So what I'll do for that, I'm going to unpin this, grab all that drawing stuff there, and group it. And so this will be our base drawing. And then we'll do our color over top of that, and we'll pin that to the base there. Zoom out here, and I suppose before I do that, I might want to go to curves and start controlling the values so that they're not getting too bright or too dark. And for a second there, I forgot which mode I was in, because your curves is going to act differently whether you're in CMYK or RGB. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adjusting the value so that it's going to be more receptive to the color that we're about to add. If it's too bright, it's not going to grab anything. Same if it's too dark. I think we've discussed this before, but you know, your max saturation is basically at your middle gray, and of course, you know, I've said it over and over that hue has a direct relationship. Well, it has a relationship with value. So you can see if you took this video and you made it grayscale, black and white, then you would see that, you know, that yellow is getting brighter there. And so if I just go to that really bright color right there, and you can see this is going to be split in half, the color that I had and the color that I'm moving to. So if I just move this down to red, you can see how we're getting darker than the yellow. Same thing over here, purples, blue. So there is an inherent relationship between hue and value. So anyway, we have to bear that in mind as we're bringing in these colors. That if the base value is too dark, it's not going to hit the level of saturation that we're aiming at, and vice versa with lightness. All right, so we're going to just paint in. Actually, I guess this first one will do it fairly accurately to the reference, so that we can see if we can get it dialed in. And so far I haven't changed this to a color layer yet. We can do that, but I don't always actually choose color. You know, there's color as the blend mode, I mean, because it doesn't always come across well in that mode. Sometimes it's nice to use another blend mode that pushes it up or down in value for the exact same reasons as I've been explaining. Let's see, that's not quite right. Now, coming in and doing this, you know, where you're tracing everything out, this reminds me why I typically don't work in grayscale and typically just go straight to color. Because once you're confident with color, you know, working in grayscale can help if you want to have a lot of control around changing your colors and so forth in the scene, but it can also just be a lot of extra work. And when you're as impatient as I am, it's not always a good thing. And I think we probably will go with the we'll test it on just a color blend mode first. Let's see, do I want the red on the outside or the inside? Kind of like it being like there's just a little accent that's draws the eye in rather than being the kind of the main color. I'll do the same thing here since we're seeing that motif come up where the headdress is got that same red color. So when in Rome. Alright, so let's set this to color. And you can see, you know, how it gets into that dark zone there. There's a couple things we could do. So if we wanted to dial that in with just a color blend mode, I would probably opt to do some different methods to it. But what we can do is do the blend if option. And so if the color below it is above a certain level of gray, see, right there. So then we've eliminated all of these kind of brighter accents here. And now, actually, if we switch it from color to normal, let's bring that down a little bit. Then it actually has a little more presence, right? And you can do a blend of these as well. So you could duplicate it, copy it, go to, who knows, overlay, something like that. We'll see if we can get some interesting color transitions. That was actually kind of interesting there with the divide. And so if we just bump this up, maybe down, you know, so you're finding these kind of interesting relationships. Let me bring this back down a little bit. That's certainly too hard of a transition, what's happening there. It's kind of interesting. It's interesting to see how they relate, you know, once you start stacking them, stacking these blend modes together, and then making these adjustments. Okay, let's do one that is the opposite. So this one I'm just going to set to normal, bump that back up, and we'll bring this up and over so that if we're peaking above that middle gray, it's going to show through. And then this we can control, get it dialed in. And we can blend it if we need to, you know, so that it's not this hard jump. Of course, we could have done that with the other ones as well. Bring that back down here because I liked how it was grabbing, you know, catching on that form there. And I'll mask this off. Start knocking some of these out here. Might even just use the eraser, which is we got more grit to it, so we're adding in some texture as well. There's some areas where I like the effect, and others where it's not as appealing. But that's what that final kind of paint over layer will be for. Alright, I'll do another one here. I suppose we can just start with color and then just jump around. Not my favorite way to work, but we'll see what we get. Okay. Got like an interesting teal color going on here. That might be too heavy. Okay, that'll work. Jump over to our yellows. Bring that in. shift that over more towards orange as it comes down into this dark area. Again, with that natural relationship in color and value, you know, if as the value shifts, there may be a more natural feeling hue to where it's landing on the brightness scale. Art things to think about. Okay, we've got some greens, barely greens. There actually really isn't much green, but there, I would almost call it more like a olive in here. And just a little bit in here. Come back to our gold color for these accents. It's actually too intense there. On these. So red here on this. Oh, that's heavy. Back to those yellow golds in there. That red's a little more intense down here. let's see. We got let's get the major colors in. We do the skin tones. Block that in. And skin tones can, of course, be very tricky. And again, with the value relationships, you know, the little shift on you. That's too intense. And the value's not quite right, so I'll have to come back to those to get them dialed in. Come back to these couple areas on the dress here. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. I will admit that, you know, I've said this is really not my preferred way to approach color, or really painting in general. I don't typically do the grayscale first. But since we've done it, we're going to finish this off. So I think we need to come in with just direct colors on this one. So I'm going to just clean up a few of these areas. And by clean up, I mean, you know, introduce other tones that I think should be there. And then we're going to just paint directly. And it looks like there's some like reds and purples just kind of popping up here and there in here, which is kind of cool. You know, it's gonna bounce off of that other, that teal really nicely. This one especially, we're going to have to dial in the tones of the face to get, or rather the value of the face to get the skin tones to read correctly. Okay, so now we'll do a new layer. This is just normal. I'm going to name this the paint over, and I should probably name the other one the color layer. Lots of color layers. Alright. So with paint over, you start grabbing these values and just, of course, as it implies, go straight towards the color. And I'm actually going to switch over to this, how about this brush here? And blend some of these in here. And this actually leans more towards kind of indigo than a bright blue. And in fact, I'm going to unpin that so that we're painting directly and we're not stuck to the pixels below it. Okay. Now, I think now that I've done this, you can see why I would typically just jump straight into this rather than dance around it too much, because it really probably could have been here by now if we had not done the black and white and color layers as we did. So now I'm going to pick a darker value here for the shadows of the blue. And yeah, this whole side actually is darker. While I've got this blue, I'll hit some of these down here. on this other character that is also in that similar color range. Excuse me. All right, back over to, we'll do the teal here. I think that needs to be brought down in value because it's just overpowering in the brightness. Oh, don't like that. Okay. Bring this for the black. There really isn't much color in it on our reference. So we'll bring that closer to gray. And that is a nice, at least in the photo, it's a nice, rich, deep black. Run out of things to say. Just going into Renderland. Let me get some of these lines dialed in here. So let's let me jump to get a brush that is going to open and close nicely. The butter brush. That'll be all right. All right, so we're gonna zoom in here. Should probably spend more time on the faces because that's going to be more of an area of interest. However, I am going to try to get some of these angles here to come through, so that we're explaining more form, explaining really what's going on with these. I think we're losing that a little bit. And these are interesting shapes here. So like this, it's like a loop on the edge of the sleeve, like a cuff, right? And so that comes down and up. And so we'll grab that color and try to show the shape of that there. Same thing over here. I could probably just add a mask here and mask this out. Oh, that's actually in the paint over. So let's just go like so. Okay, similar thing here. So now we're just trying to cut those angles in a little more clearly. We can get this all all this shadow area in there, under the chin. Switch my colors up here. The skin tones are all kinds of messed up over here, so we're gonna try to get into that. Brighter with that. I think there's just simply too much variation in it. Yeah, and I think overall that needs to be darkened down. So if we go with a color burn, that's too much, obviously. And bring this that whole value down, and then we'll smudge it out here the way we want it to. We want the light to fall. So the light is on these upper portions of the face, and then it falls off as it comes down towards the mouth. And we'll bring back just a little bit on the chin, and then we'll dial this all back. Now the risk of doing this is that you sometimes will make the transitions too hard, and for like a gristled male face or something, that can work just fine. But when you're trying to hit a likeness or a more subtle, softer facial features, then and that is not a good thing. Okay, so we'll dial that back, and so yeah, I think that does improve it quite a bit. I may even bring that in on some of these other ones here, though. I think I'll switch over to a softer, more feathered brush here. And we'll try to hit these more in zones rather than light and dark. Yeah, one of the background's too dark to begin with, so that should be addressed. Switch over to our smudge, bring some of this back. Okay. Okay, paint in some more, a few more features here. Let's do something that's got more, give us more of a pattern. Like this, this could work for patterning. I think if we just, give it a spin like that. Can't decide how I want to do that. Guess we'll just leave those. I'm going to grab all of these. I'm just going to mash it all down together. Merge those layers. Then I'm going to grab the work below it. Group that and hide it. So this will be our work group. Let's see if we duplicate this. Yeah, it gives us a little more to work with. We can erase out some of it if we don't like it. But I think that works. And we'll merge those down. And I think we can start making some adjustments. So we're just working here to bring in some clarity, clean up some of these edges. Clean up the silhouettes. Part of that's going to deal with anatomy a little bit, right? Like figuring out here, obviously the shoulder or the elbow was too far out, the shoulder was too high. So we're adjusting some of those things to get it to work. We're also checking, like here for example, we're checking how the form changes, so you kind of have this little wedge of dark there, but that's this loop completing as it goes back around, and you can break that effect, unfortunately, if your silhouette isn't cooperating. I mean, I know that's a loose way of wording it, but you got to show that form follow through there. So it's this line coming through, but then it's also that loop completing. And if you don't do that, then the effect doesn't come through. Let's switch over to a different brush here. Fill that in there. We'll zoom back out because we want to see if this is working on that higher level. It's too much of the like that hoop skirt kind of style, so we'll clean that up a little bit. Yeah, I don't want that to be too tight there. Nope. Don't like that. Let's get that silhouette figured out. So the mouth comes down, chin, make that a little softer there. I think I just need to bring that part of the painting down here. Bring the paint down to the nose so that it's not so extreme there. too dark. It's looking too flat. Like it's too direct of an angle on there. Side, no, straight on from the side. Well, again, I don't want to get too lost in the weeds with these, so I'm just going to do something quick, get back out. And that's why you do that, because when you come back out, you realize that it's just too small. You gotta look at the big picture. Do you like the angle as well? I think I prefer that. A little straighter. And then we'll reestablish that hat thing there. All right, I think I'm about coming to the end here. You know, I always say that and then keep going, but maybe tonight will be different. I think partly I'm just telling myself, like, hey, you really should be done. And I think there are a few things that I'd like to clean up. You know, it's funny. A lot of artists talk about their work this way, and this is definitely how I feel it. And that is that, you know, you get started, and then you keep fixing it until it doesn't bother you as much anymore. You know, and I think that's true. Like there are definitely things that get us started in the right direction. You know, like we were blocking in color, and well, of course we blocked in the graphic shapes first, and then some light and shadow. We had that in mind, and so there are these rules. There are pathways to follow, but I mean, you heard me complaining the whole time about, well, I don't usually work this way, don't really like where this is going, that sort of thing, and that's That's true. You know, I just I keep coming at it with you know, when you get enough on the canvas, you just keep coming at it from the mentality of, okay, you know, this blue down here is bothering me, so I'm gonna add in some accents and clean it up, and so forth. You know, this you know, skirt area here isn't very well defined. It's not, you know, describing that this character's got her, you know, her hands in her pockets, right? So let's come back and define that, you know. So it's all these little things that, frankly, it's like the things that bother me, you know, and so it's, you're just fixing. You just come back and fix it, until eventually it either doesn't bother you enough, or you just throw your hands up and say, I guess it's done. I can't remember who said that. The art is never finished, just abandoned, right? And I think if you keep looking at it, it's going to keep bothering you until eventually you do have to say, okay, that's enough. Enough's enough. Next thing. I don't know if that is separated enough or not. Up there, those values. I don't think I'll get into it today, but one of the things I do like to do with any kind of gold or brass type thing is to get all these reflected lights in it, you know, greens and, you know, blue skylight. Try to get all of this, sneak as much color and reflection into it as possible. That's what makes it look really vibrant. Of course, as I said, coming to the end here, I'm probably not going to do that. Let's see, I think we'll bring this color in a little more richness as it turns the form there. All right, we were looking at silhouette just a minute ago, so let's address those again. I don't want to get too crazy with knocking out these areas around the neck, but I do want to show that these are these interesting little fabric pieces. I think you can see it pretty well here. These pieces are apparently very stiff and hold their form, so you do have a pass through there, where you see past the under the chin, over the shoulder there, and that's a nice little feature to not to miss there. You can simplify these, but for example, this one here, actually in that reference image, you have the same kind of pass through. So you lose the neck, and that's part of what's going on with these these I don't want to call them costumes, but the traditional garb here. It's like, it seems like part of what they're going for is to have these kind of exaggerated proportions. The really big cuffs and the head that comes up to almost like a funnel, right? So all of that, you're trying to push these proportions and do something different than the natural human form, and I believe that was very likely the original intent of these, of this clothing form, the style. That said, having these little cues here, the pass through, it's nice to show that, again, to inform the viewer that this is an outfit and not an alien, right? Because the form doesn't feel recognizable. So it's nice to have those little cues there to see, oh, okay, instead of just this big silhouette of like a funnel shape, you can see these smaller shapes in there as well. So now I'm using the smudge brush to clean up that form there. We might smooth that out a little bit so it's not such a jagged edge. I might smooth some of these out. There is something to be said for kind of alternating a smooth, simplified edge and a kind of complicated, jagged, cut edge. It's a pretty powerful graphic effect. It's pretty interesting. So, like if you have, let's see if there's an example here showing up at all. I suppose you could juxtapose, like, this here is very simple, and then this is a simple swoop. But then up here you've got this complicated, the shoulder to the face to this thing going on with the head. So let me highlight that so I can explain what I mean. You've got, we'll do blue for smooth, right? And then we'll do this orange for the more complicated edge, right? Then again, you can switch right back to smooth, smooth, right? So varying that edge side to side. I saw an artist explaining this, and he explained it like on one edge to another edge, and it's kind of interesting. You can see it come up in different, especially sci-fi spaceships and stuff. You'll have like you'll have like a carapace or whatever. This maybe simplified edge. And then on the bottom, you have all this complicated, techno-greeble stuff, and then it's like covered up with this nice soft shell, right? Maybe it's like a motorcycle, space motorcycle or something. Probably can't see that. I see it in my head. Little headlights right here. Shadow. Anyway. Alright, I think I'm to the point where I would like to maybe do overlay, color balance, and call it good. Okay, so we'll go. We'll start with color balance. We'll shift this around a little bit until it feels. In this case, I think we're just going to go for a natural feel since we have skin tones. We don't really want to. We don't want to go too crazy with these unnatural kind of lights. That's warmer, cooler. We'll go with warmer. Turn that on and off, see how we like it. Yeah, I do like that. So then we'll go to overlay. Turn that on. Wow, we're almost at midnight. That's not good. Not good. Let's go. We'll just do a soft brush here. And this is nice in that it brings in this kind of powerful warmth. Shifts the tones and so forth. Switch this up for, we'll go with a green. Why not? See what that does for us. We might find out why not. It might not look very nice once we get it in there. Again, we'll use this to push and pull, get some more variation in there. And let's go with like a middle blue. Just kind of temper things, bring it back down. It's making her look like she has a 5 o'clock shadow or something. We don't want that. Yeah, we're just reinforcing some of these shadows here. Then we're going to test moving this above and below that color balance. Doesn't make a huge difference, but I think I prefer it being below. Shift some of these over a little tighter. And I guess we can mess with this background. Usually throw a few gradients in. Some kind of illusion of not necessarily the illusion of depth. It's more like if there's a transition in the back and the form, you know, that passes through the form, that it helps the form kind of pop up a little bit. Okay. Doing a slightly tighter shadow on the contact region and then softening it up as it goes away. And I suppose so we can address these separately, basically. We can address our background layer differently than the subject themselves. Yes, the last thing we could do is a little bit of rim lights or bounce lights or anything to that effect. So. Yeah, I don't know about that one. The bottom right image, not my favorite. I kind of feel like I should be giving these a little more thought, but being as we're to the end, I want to kind of just get the effect in, see if it's working, and Alright, so that is set to normal. And I think we could set that to maybe screen might work. Yeah, then we'll just lower the value till it looks right. We could also give it a color. Go to normal, we change it to hue saturation, we colorize it, maybe make it like a fairly rich blue so that it's skylight, or maybe an orange, yellow, something. Let's go with that blue. Zoom in here. Off, on. I can live with that. I think in all, I might want to adjust the way that these are lit, like from top to bottom. But I don't think we're gonna get too far doing that, so I might just hit it just a little bit with this. This is a luminosity layer. So I'm just zooming out here. I guess I can come back in so that you guys can see what's going on. And I'm just kind of blending these colors together. So we're controlling the value a little bit more here. And of course, as always, we will dial this back. But the point being that there's too much contrast across the whole of these characters. Like, it might have been a good idea to have push the lights and darks, you know, a little more up front. All right, let me zoom back in. This is not going to look good, just so you know. At this stage, we have to dial it in a bit more before it feels right at all. So that's luminosity, right? So we're going to have to drop that back so that it's not having this huge effect, right? So that it is pushing and pulling things again. Then we'll dial this back here so that our bright values come through, but that our darks are still controlled by it. See if we bring that up, that might work. Maybe we'll blend that in. It still has some control there. Who knows? Maybe this is a bad idea. I'm okay with saying, no, that didn't work. I do want to rein in that kind of cartoon feeling of everything's in that black to white range, and you want to dial that back. Bring that up here and then back down. Go back to our multiply. I'll hit this again to see if we can get that dialed in. Alright, I think at this point it's diminishing returns. So, we'll call that done. Alright, so this was much longer than I intended for it to be, but this is what you get every Wednesday. Sorry for the inconsistency, but at the same time, the kind of spontaneity is, I think, important to what we're trying to do here. So, as always, I hope you were painting along with one of your projects and got somewhere with it. And I hope that you got something out of tonight's session. If you were, looking for some kind of direction or inspiration. But really, I think it's just putting the time in, doing the work, and so that's the main thing that I would recommend for anyone, aspiring to improve your work. It's just, don't just watch the videos, paint along as well. So, yeah, thank you for joining in tonight, and enjoy the rest of your night. All right, goodbye.